Mack and YoYo face down Kasius in an epic match of misdirection, while Sinara closes it on Quake to finish what she started. There's resurrection, revenge, and the last flight of the Zephyr One on this week's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5, Episode 9. Best Laid Plans. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So yeah, lots of spoilers and some real interesting theories I think will be popping up tonight as well. But let's get started with kind of a wow. Actually, the whole opening bit I wanted to sort of touch on, that opening moment of sequence, which I thought was so beautifully done and really sets the tone for the rest of the episode. I mean, that wonderful shot where we've got the smoke behind and the red light, and then we've got the blue Kree with the blue lit up guns just coming out of that red fog, and all of those opening sequence, real, dichotomies of color right here, really standing out. I thought it was beautifully done. Really fit, the mood in the station right there. But even that whole sequence where we see them closing in on the humans and they're throwing rocks and they're chasing down, and of course you turn the corner and it's an ambush and they get wiped out, really exemplifies what's going on, especially on Mack and YoYo's side of the episode this week. It was all misdirection. You see one thing, but something else is going on. They show you one thing, but behind the scenes, other things are happening. Really so much kind of back and forth. I just thought was sort of beautifully done. We get a lot of great moments there, I think, with Mack being protective of Flint, and YoYo trying to be supportive and really showing back her background as kind of a revolutionary, growing up in that rough neighborhood when we first met her, and all of kind of her little sketchy backstory there, really showing that she has tried to use her powers and do everything in order to stand up, but she hasn't been afraid to do a little bit of dirty work. And really showing off, I think, earnestly there when she's showing Flint how to shoot. And he's standing up all very proud about ready to go, and Mack was like, give me the gun, you're going too far. Which we're seeing a lot of, I think, Flint throughout this. Even, again, that opening sequence, he's like, great, no more blues on the floor, we kicked them all out, this is, no blues allowed here. Really owning into that youthful exuberance into revolutionaries. And of course, Mack, a little more cautious, seen a lot, certainly having a lost hope, and that's still fresh, I think, from a framework standpoint. Seeing another kid taking a risk, I think, is really hitting Mack very strong throughout this episode. But I loved all those sequences. I love the back and forth. I love the chemistry we have. Mack and YoYo together are they're so sweet. It's so cool. And YoYo's like in Revolutionary Rebel Mack. I have to agree with her. I just thought it was all really well done. But again, it's that setup, that inclination that it's misdirection, that everything is happening beyond what you think is happening, really resonant throughout that sequence this episode. Now, before I get into too much more specifics in the episode, I do want to sort of touch on a little bit of theory and some stuff that was brought to light through here, specifically Voss's line. When he was asked, how do you know that it's Quake who is behind all of this? And he said, well, there was a bright flash of light, aliens from what I heard, S.H.I.E.L.D. went up to meet it, and it went bad. Next thing you know, Quake shows up and the Earth cracks. And that's sort of what Robin seems to have told Voss, and he lets on. But that's really important, especially when we see how Kasius sort of responds to Mack and YoYo in that little sort of face down. He gives a lot of information away, and I think we might be able to see a little bit different to what was going on. When we last heard about the alien showing up, the Kree showing, it seemed to be after the Earth cracked. From Voss's story here, from what Robin seemed to have said, it happened beforehand. And Kasius seems to know an awful lot about the negotiations when he was talking about Mack and YoYo, about negotiating the humans and inhumans. This is the same thing that happened so many years ago. That's what he said, that type of negotiation. Kree live for a very long time. I think it's like thousands of years, potentially. So I'm thinking what this might show to us is that Kasius is the one that showed up. He showed up with some Kree, probably to mine humanity from Inhumans, or mine Inhumans out of humanity. In that order, I think. Because that seems to have always been his focus. That's certainly the effective threat that they had going on in this episode. Again, masterfully done. So if he comes to Earth to try and pull out Inhumans from there to sell on the open market, as it were, perhaps he brought the Gravitonium. It's not Graviton who might think, but the Kree who bring the Gravitonium use that to crack the Earth. Quake goes down to try and stop it, but is unable to, or perhaps there's a super reaction or, you know, something that she can't entirely control in a way to try and stop it. But it was the Kree that intended to fracture the Earth in order to reduce the population so they can't fight back. I mean, there's 9 billion of us on the planet. You get an alien threat, kind of like Independence Day, we think we are going to somewhat band together, unless you take out the planet. Fracture us into such a small group of people that the natural infighting that happens with humanity, that Kasius seemed to be very proud of, and very telling of how humans act, was allowed to occur. You get a small portion up there, being able to hide them out in the lighthouse, and therefore control the small population. You might get less Inhumans as a general rule, but less likelihood that people are going to come after you, like Iron Man and stuff. But again, we'll forget the whole rest of the big MCU of why we don't have any of the rest of the humans, and it's just S.H.I.E.L.D. that goes up to fight the Kree. But I think we might start to find that this is more that Kasius is the one ultimately responsible for the destruction of Earth. Oh, and of course the long-held theory that Flint was here in order to piece the monolith back together that everyone's been tossing around. Yeah, that was pretty much confirmed. So, you know, right on. Some great character stuff going on with Coulson's section of the gang this episode. Beautiful moment between Phil and May. Of course, very touching. I thought that was very sweet how he's able to step up, recognize how May's kind of going through something, and have that little kind of mom-dad conversation there. I thought that was really cute, especially with Daisy sort of peeking her head in the middle of that conversation, almost like the kid. You know, they've got their own little family unit there. But I thought that was rather sweet. You know, kind of May surprised about being a mom, and of course Phil saying, "It doesn't surprise me at all." It was a nice Felinda moment. We really see that strength of characters here together. So I love the fact that we had at least that little touch there. We had that little family kind of moment. Deke, I thought, giving a little bit of depth this episode also. I love his conversations with Voss and how Deke is kind of struggling still with that whole theory. You know, Voss, I thought, was able to manipulate him rather nicely, talking about the difference between him and his dad and what the plans were, and we're together at this one point, but then after that, we never talked about what was happening. Not entirely sure if Deke's dad started the fight or Voss did. Can't really tell. Deke's dad did seem to have a temper, so I guess it is entirely possible. But I just like how that sort of plays with Deke in this episode. And the moments they had with Daisy. First off, I'm going to say I don't think Daisy and Deke are an item. I don't think they're meant to be. I think they will find a level of respect for each other, and I think that's really what we're going for with their sequence throughout this pod. But I like that discussion of heroes, how Daisy was like, "I'm glad that you didn't kill him, it really shows what needs to do," and he's kind of throwing it back in her face. There's just a lot of depth into these discussions, and of course behind all of that, Daisy really willing to step up and not be Quake anymore. With that, you know, kind of an interesting move from Voss, who's like ready to kill her, and she's like, "Well, look, if I start it, maybe I don't need my powers back. Maybe I can just be an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. And a badass one, also, really stepping in. I love how they really have Daisy stepping forward, especially since May's been injured, and in real life, you know, Ming-Na is recovering from that knee injury. How Daisy's really kind of stepped into that realm and really kind of continued that legacy, because the fighting styles are very similar, and it would make sense with May training Daisy to fight. So I love how she's grabbed a hold of that sort of baton and ran with it, and how the show is really working well with the changes that's going on with the characters. But how much Daisy really is willing to give up and not be Quake and not... It just adds so much depth while we have Deke trying to figure out what to do is the right thing, and really what is the right thing. Sacrifice one for many, or is killing any really just a running down a bad road, as Mack implied with Flint. You know, I don't want to see him starting down this road. You know, we need thinkers. We don't need a mob. We need a plan, not a mob. But how Deke is kind of wrestling with those thoughts of what heroism is, and Daisy at the same time, in her aspect, also weighing, do I need to be Quake, or is this too much of a burden to bear and too much of a risk for humanity? So a lot of great little character stuff going on. And of course, without it to say, classic Fitzsimmons stuff. When they're going back and forth talking about the plan of coming up and how the Gravitonium will work with the jets, and they do a little fist bump together. It was perfect. In the plane, all of it totally lovely. Also, got to say, Fitz's moment when he sort of realizes that they are in a time loop and what's going on, and that, according to the deterministic viewpoint, that block of paper that we were talking about, that there's no way to change anything, you know. But that's the perfect Fitzsimmons comparison too, where he sees that they're trapped, Gemma sees hope. Because that means they're at least going to go back, that they have a chance. So really, just great character stuff all around going up on the Zephyr One there. All right, Tess. That was a surprise. I have to say, that totally caught me off guard. But then when they say it, it totally made sense, of course. They did the T.A.H.I.T.I. Well, the reviving part of the T.A.H.I.T.I, not the brain manipulation part, or memory manipulation part. But yes, that was super cool. And again, you know, you're scared, like, what's going on? Is she a zombie? Is she under some sort of control? But no, it's just that image. I mean, imagine for Tess, after being kind of tortured, killed, and then brought back in what appears to be a rather painful manner, with Casillas leering over you, proclaiming himself a god. Yes, I could see where that would be that would be a bit off-putting. And I just, you know, I have to say, I really loved the whole movement that we had with Tess with this, because really, throughout so much of it, we're thinking that she is completely caved. No matter what everyone is saying, she is just convinced there is nothing that they could do. And it really lays into when they go and find things out. I loved also Mack. While everyone is panicking about doing an attack, Mack is thinking about finding a technical reason of why Casillas would be able to do what he wants with the push of a button. And tracking down the bombs and things like that. But that, like I said, that lays in the whole misdirection that's going on, because we buy that. And we buy when Mack comes up and says the whole, it took me an hour to get this one thing, we'll never do it, we're going to have to give up, and even does the big whole, you're not going to see us again. But if, you know, if we succeed, your children would be safe. There is so much of a giving in to what Casillas represents, to that godhood. The fact that there is nothing that they can do to fight, that everything that they try to do doesn't work. And I think Tess really spearheaded all of this, because you would think that she would be the one that might be able to turn around, that might be able to see it and believe it again. But no, that horrible instance that she goes through of being resurrected by Casillas, and the pain, the fact that it could happen over and over again, as Casillas clearly threatens with later on, it was just, it seemed to be too much. But it wasn't. And that's why Tess gets our Scene of the Week for this week. And that is her return to Casillas. Because at that point, completely we're sold out that she is turned, that she was on Casillas' side, that nothing was going to happen. She was there. She was terrified. She wasn't going to fight back. And as Casillas threatens her and she throws out the plan, oh, I didn't come empty-handed. And there's the vial, and then lets him know, oh no, they've taken the lab. And they're going to blow it up unless you come and meet them. And they can do it with the push of a button. They wanted me to make sure to say it that way. The push of a button. The exact threat that Kasius has done. It was so perfect because at that moment you see that no, she hasn't turned. She's on humanity's side, and it was so subtly done. It was so perfectly done. I thought it was amazing. Anyway, it just I'm glad Tess is back. She's a marvelous actress and really just sold that from beginning to end. And of course, it sets up that last 10 minutes, which last 10 minutes of episodes of S.H.I.E.L.D. blows anything on TV away, man. Alright, so that was our scene of the week because I can't say the last 10 minutes of the episode can be a whole scene of the week. But it was incredible. I had to pick one little moment, and that was almost like everything once the Zephyr takes off. No, that takes too long. And then you had everything going on with Mack and YoYo and Kasius, which was awesome. So really I couldn't break it all down. So yeah, that was the scene of the week, but come on, these last 10 minutes were awesome. The Zephyr taking off was beautiful. That whole sequence, the moments of complete confidence to complete panic. Jen was like, everything's okay, and then in the midst of everything going wrong, she was like, this was a horrible idea, I'm sorry I suggested it. It was just awesome. She was one of my favorite little bits. But really, we've got our two main sequences. We have Sinara v. Quake, round 2, which was beautifully done. Starting off in zero gravity, throwing them around, the gravity comes on, beautiful fight. I mean, like I was mentioning before, this is the legacy of May inhabiting in Quake. We can't have May doing this fighting because she's recovering from a knee injury. Well, Ming-Na is May's recovering from having a pipe in her leg. But Quake really, Daisy just doing a beautiful job. Great choreography. Wonderful fights, and really when you're thinking about this, considering that Daisy had just said, can I just be an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and no longer Quake? This is just a pretty badass agent, so that would not be so much of a loss, necessarily. But I just thought that was great. I love Deke kind of stepping up and trying to help and then getting knocked out of it. The reveal there when he pops up with the claw and grabs her and pulls her down. That was awesome. And even the ending, even the kill, I thought was pretty cool. I'm gonna say the one thing is that was a little cheesy. Only in the sense that Sinara was the only one to take off. I get it that when the Zephyr flips over, that's like shh and boom, you know, you got momentum that's throwing her up. It just would have been cool if it was faster. Because it was slow, it looked more floating. So it didn't seem like enough force when Daisy pulled up the spike for her to get impaled quite so much. On the other hand, it was kind of cool that when you are in zero-G, you can't steer. You're on a trajectory. You can't turn and grab and move, and that's it. So once she was committed to that, there was really nothing Sinara could do, which was really cool. I'm just saying from a visual standpoint, it would have been cool faster. Also, maybe if Deke or anything else kind of flipped up at least for just a moment. And then, you know, Sinara maybe pushed off and made it go a little bit more. Just some little difference. The fact that she was the only one that moved, again, tiny criticism out what I thought was just a whole beautiful sequence. Plus getting to see the Zephyr run and then going up into space and the whole visual effects that was done with that as they're flying through the atmosphere and such was beautifully done. I love that entire sequence. And that's matched up with Mack and YoYo, which was again that perfect sense of misdirection. Because yeah, we're expecting that they're waiting for Kasius to come up and then he's going to be like, all right, blow up, we're all going to go at the same time. Which would be a loss for all of us. But the fact that Kasius is prepped, that he's got his cool little shield thing, and that stops YoYo from coming up and doing things, and he can guess, oh, you were trying to get to this. Each side suspecting what the other side is trying and planning on doing and being prepared for it. But in the end, when we realize, no, all of this was just to buy a little bit more time so the rest of the humans could get rid of the bombs, which apparently did not take quite as long. Or, I can't say that Flint was in some way able to use some rock ability in there that seemed to move something to make it let go. It didn't seem to be that. It seemed to me from that point that all those big speech making was done to perform to Kasius, in case there were spies, in case there were cameras, in case there was anything else that was done. That was all performance. And then in quiets and back rooms and small places, that's where the real deal making, where everybody was going around to try and dismantle the bombs. This took me forever. It was only 5 minutes. But no, it was an hour. You know, something along those lines, to perform to Kasius, to think that he might have, if there is anybody watching, that the humans don't have a chance. So I love that whole bit. And Kasius really stepping forward, I mean, relishing the whole villain and bad guy, giving us that information about the deal making with the humans back in the past, but also proclaiming his godhood and how he was seeing humanity, that they will always turn on each other. Again, more of these ideas of how long he has been here and what his plans have been. So it was just beautifully done. And then when we find out that no, it was to separate the humans, and they used the bombs to separate the levels between the Kree and the humans. So now Kasius can't get up to him. It was just so nice. And then of course the goodbye blow up and they disappear. And again, I love the whole shielding around Kasius. That was just, it's smart. It's smart on Kasius' part, and he's smart. That's what makes him a good villain. It was just, anyway, just God, for last 10 minutes of an episode, that was just, that had everything you could have wanted and more. All right, just a couple of things here real quick. One, everybody got quips this episode. I thought that was awesome. We got Enoch talking about being plastic and that plastic is good. We got Deke going off as I used to be really good at self-preservation. We got May going off on Enoch. We got just everybody. Everybody seemed to have quips this episode. It just kind of kept it upbeat and fun. Gravitonium is everywhere. Certainly aboard the Zephyr One, certainly aboard the lighthouse, but also, as Fitz thinks, all around the planet. And that's what is keeping the atmosphere on Earth and why they seem to have regular gravity, despite this only being a small chunk of the crust of Earth there. So, thank you. That does give us some great explanations of why all of this that seemingly physics doesn't allow is happening. Gravitonium is the answer. And, like Fitz surmises, possibly the cause of it all in the first place. So Enoch is here to observe and record the evolution of humanity. Okay, also mostly plastic. I hope you guys got a chance to check out the video that I did talking about universes and time travel. Little special edition there. There was just so much going on in this episode. I had to talk some more. But we had some little great discussions in the comments after that. One, Gordon Shumway actually brought up an interesting idea how the deterministic block of paper idea could allow for time loops that eventually change. And that is if you have a defined finite amount of time loops. And there really is nothing, I think, from that block of paper idea that says as long as it's determined and it can't change, if you had repeating loops that at some point something did change and it re-entered the time stream with everybody else, if it's predetermined, there's nothing really that says you can't. So, Gordon, you found a wonderful loophole there. And also from that idea, I was thinking, just in case, if they do go back and change time, is that going to mean there's two Fitzes there? Because I'm assuming that they go back after Fitz gets cryogenically frozen, after the 6 months where he's in prison. So, you know, around, say, May of 2018, we'll just say, or beforehand. But if they come back with Fitz, doesn't that mean there's going to be a Fitz floating in the freezer up there in space for a while? I don't know, just a thought. Could be a possible future plot line too. And lastly, final little drop of info at the end of the episode, Casillas has a seer of his own. Quite interesting. Does sort of change the game. Really curious where that's going to go. More information to come on that, but man, a lot of info dropped this episode. Alright, well I think that wraps things up for us for this week. Really exciting, a lot of stuff happening. One of the best last 10 minutes on television, I swear. I know I keep saying it, but it was. And now next week it looks like, well, Phil in the game going to land the Zephyr over there at the lighthouse, but I guess Kasius is going to meet up with them. And there does look like a very dangerous match between Kasius and Mack to come. Mack's future is a little shaky. But everybody's going back. That's my commitment, because this is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and we can't lose any more cool agents. I love Mack. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up for me. Thank you so much for joining me. If you did enjoy what I had to say, as always, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, throw those down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. If you're not a subscriber, please do so. It's quick, it's easy. Hit this button. You won't miss any of our reviews. And I'll go up and throw up a couple of the latest ones right here, including the time travel and time loop one that I just did, in case you missed it. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.